Hello and welcome to Progressive Mindset with myself, Jason Kemsley.
And me, Bradley Monday. And on this episode, we're going to talk about what the routine of a successful person looks like. We're absolutely not. What we're going to do is debunk the myth that a successful person does this or a successful person does that. Nothing grinds my gears more than seeing the clickbait and all the other things about what successful people
You must
do.
wake up at 4 a.m. and drink 2 litres of water and run through a mountain and wrestle a bear. And there is so much of it out there, right?
Those kind of things.
And we're quite different as well.
We're very different. And so whilst this isn't necessarily the hardest hitting topic, we thought it was time for a slightly lighter episode. And also because we are polar opposites, I think, in terms of some of the things that we do, it was important just to share. And I think the message that we're trying to send here is actually just do you, but do it consistently. I think what successful people do is consistent stuff. Absolutely. Luck favors the consistent. There's so many different things that just favor consistency.
Absolutely. But there is some things, right, that people might be able to take from this still. Hopefully, like every other episode, we try and create some value. The reduction in choices, the playing to your strengths. So I know your routine plays to your strengths and mine plays to mine. So you know what you can do, you know what your capacity is, and hopefully you can learn from one of ours, or maybe you go, I do that.
Just some ideas to throw out there and try. I'm not saying don't try different ideas, but if it's just not you, there's no point in trying to stick with it. It's not going to create a successful person in you, right?
Absolutely. Let's start with you then.
Okay. Should we start with the morning?
Yeah, let's start with the morning. What does the morning look like? What sort of time are you getting up? On a week. Let's start with weekday.
So I actually get up the same time every day of the week.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a lion in my world. Predominantly because I've got children. Otherwise, I might be persuaded on a weekend to lie in.
Don't have children is the first takeaway. Is that what you're suggesting?
Not if they're watching. So somewhere around 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I tried the sleep apps that are meant to to wake you up at a more natural time. Didn't actually work for me. I didn't find getting up any easier than it was before, or it'd be waking me up like way earlier than I wanted to get up. So I get up somewhere between 5:30, 6 o'clock. And you know what? I might use the snooze button once or twice. I think that's
most people don't admit it.
No, and if you read all the things, successful people don't snooze. And I do try hard not to use it, but hey, you know what? It's quite an enjoyable thing, and I don't think the road to being successful means you can't do something that actually you enjoy or take some good things from. So there'll be a couple of snoozes along the way. My missus loves it. So we do that, get up, and I work in the office. So for me, the reason I do that is actually I like the commute. It's about 20 minutes, and I've changed some of the things I do over the last 6 months. I've actually added a lot to my routine to try and become a bit more consistent, but also make use of my time. I've become very aware of the time that I have. And so rather than listening to the radio on the way in, I'll stick on a podcast. Just gets the juices flowing. So my routine is podcast on the way in, and then a bit of music to relax on the way back out from the office.
Let's just strip it back quickly. You wake up, you jump in straight in the shower, you having a bath.
I'm in the shower.
You're in the shower.
Yeah.
Okay, so you jump in the shower, then you get changed straight away.
Dressed out the door.
Straight out the door.
Yeah,
so there's no breakfast there. There's no two pints of water or
none of that.
You're out, and as quickly as I functionally can, I want to be out that door.
Yeah, out the door in the car and into the office. I love getting in before. So I am naturally an early bird, and the benefit for me is to get into the office before everyone else, so that I can actually that's my most productive time. It's uninterrupted time, and that's when I'm super productive.
Okay. And then, so I'll maybe throw my morning routine in at this point, just so we can compare. I'm a little bit different. I'm certainly not an early bird, but I've had to I've had to learn to change it slightly. So I typically wake up when I'm coming into the office 6:30, 6:40. I have quite a commute, not your 20-minute.
A little bit longer than me.
It's an hour on a normal day, hour and 20. If I'm 5 minutes late, it can make all the difference to the commute. So I'm up. Very first thing I do is shower.
Mm-hmm.
I do follow one of those things that everyone talks about. I do have a cold shower. For the last minute of my shower, roughly, give or take, I turn that thing
I've
to
tried.
freezing cold. And I tell you exactly what I do. I look, there's a small part of the shower that reflects so I can see myself. And I look at it. And every morning I look and I say, no one's going to do it for you. And
Did you say that out loud? Is that an out loud?
no, to myself.
To
At this
yourself,
point, I'm not
it's
awake enough
internalised.
to
Okay.
talk out loud or have anyone hear it, maybe. I throw it to cold. I feel like it gets my senses going.
Is it cold enough to get you to be gasping for breath?
Yeah, there are very, very deep and long breaths there. And I actually use the Wim Hof app. So you choose the day you're on. And it says, right, today you're a minute. Because you shouldn't always do the same amount of time.
Okay.
Was basically the thinking. And it counts down, and then it just, a little bell, not very loud, quite quietly, says when you're done. And that whole time I'm just focusing at this spot and focusing on my breathing. I get out, done. I've got quite a limited wardrobe, I'm not ashamed to say. I typically wear one of two colours, white or black.
He says, wearing a blue shirt if you're watching on YouTube.
This, and I still feel uncomfortable putting this on every day sometimes. Ironically, this has been ready to wear for a few weeks and I never pick it. So there must be something subconscious there. I don't go with the Mark Zuckerberg, I have all black t-shirts or whatever. I do have all black, but I might have a loose fit shirt and a tighter shirt, and I have a bit of variety there so that I at least feel like I'm spicing it up. So shirt on, jumper maybe, it's black or whatever. And then I'm the exact same thing. I carry with me every day, and I haven't got it in front of me here, but I carry a 2-litre bottle of water.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm driving, I do 20 deep breaths in, 20 deep breaths out on the journey.
Okay.
A guy called Gary Bracker has changed my life. I drink a little bit of water, makes me feel like I'm doing something half good. And then I listen to a sport radio station. And I don't know why, and I constantly try to go to the podcast in the morning or, listen to something meaningful. But it feels like it just eases me into the day. Maybe because I'm not a morning person.
Okay. Yes. If you're a slow starter, maybe it's not quite time to get the juices flowing yet.
No.
But I know you're a podcast listener, so it must come later for you.
This is a nighttime thing when we get to nighttime.
Okay.
So getting into your day, we don't want to jump into the nitty gritty of what you do for working, etc. But lunches, finishing time, what does that all look like?
So I actually want to get into how I plan my day.
Okay.
Because
cool.
I've changed it recently, and actually I found it stressful to begin with, but it's really working for me now. So, historically I was using a to-do list. I've got a Remarkable, so I don't lose my notes, but I like to.
That's a digital notebook for those that are not.
Yeah. I like to hand write my notes, but not lose them. So it worked pretty well for me. And I liked the satisfaction of crossing off when I've done things. That gives you the endorphin rush that you need to. I've stopped doing that because ultimately a to-do list can be this endless list of, it becomes a scrollable list quite literally now, because it's electronic. To using your calendar as your as your task list. So rather than sticking them on a list, you're blocking them out so that you spend
the right
amount of time. Absolutely. So rather than taking it off the to-do list and spending however long it takes, if I only want to spend 15 minutes on a task, 45 minutes on a task, it's in the diary, and when the next one pops up, you either rebook for the future, or you've completed it, or you haven't completed it, that sort of stuff. And just help me understand what needed to be, and prioritize those things that there's always those little bits that you've just got to get done, but make sure you're focusing on the rocks, making sure you got the bigger things in the jar first, as it were, and then fit everything in around it. So it's really helped me to prioritize what's important to me and to the business.
Okay.
As I said, I found that stressful. If you are going to try that, to begin with, it can be quite overwhelming. Suddenly your diary's all full.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff. But
And you've got to throw a lunch in there or something, I assume. You factor in your time.
You absolutely have to then make time for, hey, if I'm going to take a break, make sure the break's in there, as you've said.
And do you take a break? What does your break look like?
I am not good at taking a break. Now, I don't know whether it's because I've had a real focus on delegation or whether it's some changes in some of my to-do lists and that sort of stuff. But for the last couple of weeks, I've found myself with gaps of time where I didn't know what to do. This is a new feeling, and we're in an industry where
that is arguably the definition of success in some ways.
I think it's what we should all be aiming for, is to make sure that actually you are not key to the running of your business. And everyone says it, and it's super, super difficult to get to.
You can choose how to spend your time rather than it choosing how to.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, that was a weird. I think it should be normal that there are gaps of time where actually you are, as you said, you're choosing how to fill them. But for me, that was a weird experience because I'm used to being 100 mile an hour.
Yep.
And working 12, 14-hour days. So, yeah, that was an interesting one for me. But I recommend trying out different ways of managing your tasks, especially if you're finding that you're not getting the right stuff done.
Yep.
I was definitely guilty of, hey, I've done all the sand, all the stuff that ultimately doesn't work towards your goals, and then not finding the time, or certainly not when I was in my key focus hours. So
Sure.
the first part of the day is my key focus. If I'm going to go and do something that's really impactful, it better be then. So I've moved my meetings as well. I don't allow people to book meetings in my mornings.
Okay.
If I can help it. Obviously, we work around the globe, so sometimes there's time zone elements that mean you can't do that. But I've started to try and do that just to focus my time a little bit more in my brains.
And so, what does the end of your day look like? What sort of time are we talking? I ask these questions like I don't know, but for the person listening,
I try and make it sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So it does work out to be 12 hours, but that works for me, and I think for some people, a longer day is how they're wired. Some people, it's a much shorter day, I think.
And now that you've found that new effectiveness, would you look to bring that? Are you going to bring that to 5? Because, hey, I've become a bit more effective. I can have that hour back with the kids, or are you just wired that you don't feel like you've done a full day if you finish at 5?
Yeah, and this is probably something that could change. It's probably more of a flaw than anything else, but I don't. Yes, we're a 24/7 business, but the people that work in my time zone, I struggle to finish before they do.
Yep.
And if I do, I find myself pacing. I'll just be at home, just pacing up and down. Like I find it hard to relax during what is the normal working day. So I think 5:30 is always going to be a normal sort of winding down time.
Okay.
For me, there or thereabouts. What about yourself? Let's talk about your day and how you manage it. Let's get into that.
So I usually have, as I said, I've got quite a long commute, so I usually have a bit of time to think about what's ahead. I'm fortunate enough to have a car that shows my diary. I can look at my diary. Obviously not when I'm driving.
When it's safe.
When it's safe. And so I'm usually thinking about, hey, I usually think these are the 3 things I've got to achieve today. I'm not as, I was going to say fortunate, but I don't necessarily have the luxury of diary management that I think you have.
Okay.
I have just a constant need of calls, meetings, presentations, whatever it may be. I usually in a normal week have quite a few things stacked up or waiting, and that's possibly if something I want to work on is I can still book stuff around it. I can still have other things in.
You just got to get ahead of the curve, right? You've got to get there before the people have booked.
Absolutely.
So a bit more forward planning.
Yeah, and then I start thinking, hey, but what if the time they want to speak to me is 4 days on, and maybe it's a problem and it's got worse, and so that's something I constantly wrestle with. I want to be available.
Yep.
But by being available, you haven't allocated that time, so you find yourself not working as effectively. So it's
before I forget this. So I'm just going to jump in for a second. I meant to mention that with diary blocking and that sort of stuff, when you are doing tasks, and that's how you're using your to-do list, most of our collaboration tools now use your diary to tell the rest of your team your status.
Okay.
So you've got to be so I'm being really mindful to go and actively set myself to available when I'm doing
A task.
some of those tasks, because otherwise I'm just red. Right? There is no time for collaboration with me. And I think sometimes that can get missed. Is you've got to make sure that especially in a remote world, when you are available, you've got to make sure that you're perceived as being available to ensure that the good communication still happens amongst your team.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree, and that's definitely something I want to improve. And I keep thinking about it, but I'm going to have to. There's definitely one for me to work on. I typically always try and take a lunch, so I purposely don't bring lunch, so that I'm forced to go and get something.
Mm-hmm.
I found when I take lunch, I sit at my desk, I eat it. My eyes start hurting from looking at the screens or whatever it is it may be. And so I purposely make sure I don't have lunch available so that I can go out, and even if that is a 2-minute walk or whether that's a 2-minute drive, grab what I need, come back. Yeah, you can sit and work, or you can sit and eat it, whatever. Typically no more than 20 minutes, maybe.
Okay.
25 minutes.
And you go for a walk, don't you, when you're at home?
When I'm at home, I always take the dog for a walk. Or I say always, weather dependent. We live in the UK. And I try and take the dog for a walk. 30, 40 minutes. I usually take a call or two, or make a call or two on the dog walk. Otherwise, I feel like I haven't been very productive, and I feel like it's a good... The dog doesn't want to talk to me, so I can talk to someone else.
But at least you can be right all the time.
Well, that's true. So I like to feel like I'm being productive still in that period. And if I took a 40-minute without anything happening, I feel like I've just lost 40 minutes. Then straight back into it. You mentioned about your sort of key hours being that sort of first period of the day. My key hours, the bit where I'm at my best, is sort of 3 o'clock to 8, 9 o'clock. More specifically, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Right. So everyone else is out enjoying themselves, in their evening, and you're getting your best work done.
Not necessarily. So I usually finish up at about 5 o'clock. I usually finish up and I go to the gym.
Okay.
For me, that's the one thing that gives me clarity in amongst so many things you could possibly worry about, think about, etc. I get back from, and obviously I'll flip over to you in a sec. I was just going to extend it a bit. I get back from the gym, I eat, and then I'm usually doing something. In my role, that last night it meant calls with US and New Zealand.
Yep.
The night before it meant there was a proposal. They wanted the best pricing, and so I was doing some maths and stuff, because I felt like in that moment my brain was really engaged and I could work out profitability, and I felt like I could do those bits. But that is, no one's disturbing me. I can do what I need to do at that time. Sometimes that is a call.
So you've got the same. You're aiming for the same thing that I talked about earlier, but
I have to do it in the evening
when it's productive for you. So just
absolutely, and it feels like it's on my terms. So I guess kind of like your morning, there is although we're completely different there, the same principles apply. We know where we're good, where we're most effective. We're consistent with those times, but also I'm pretty good at scheduling the things that I would be rubbish at if I'd done them any other time in the day.
Okay.
So it's about knowing how to use them right and use them to your advantage.
Indeed, and that's what we're getting at in this podcast. Is there's not one thing that fits all successful people.
Absolutely.
It's got to work for you. You've got to play about and try these things
And learn yourself.
Yeah.
So talk about the evening. You've obviously got children.
So
did you switch off when you leave at 6?
Yeah. So the listening to music thing on the way home is definitely a part of that. It's the winding down thing. You get home, the children are excited to see you. We're trying to get some homework in. I've got a 6-year-old, so I can still do the homework because I've got a 6-year-old. Right, we haven't reached the boundaries of my knowledge there. So we get that done. We'll play a game, we'll do whatever, and then the kids are typically in bed by 7. I am definitely not advocating the no or very minimal exercise lifestyle, but it is it is me. I find it really difficult to fit that in. But when I do use it is when I start to become lethargic, or I find I have a couple of days in a row where I can't focus.
Yep.
Then I go and obviously I'm well aware of the benefits. It is just fitting that in, and probably an excuse that I probably need to work on. But I do use it when I notice that actually it's needed.
So it's a tool for you.
It's a tool to get my mind back where it needs to be, and then I do sort of let that drop off, unfortunately.
And then what you spending a bit of time with the partner? You're watching a bit of telly.
Yeah, so I do a bit of telly, and that's rule 101 rule 101 of being successful, right? You don't ever watch the telly.
Oh, it's a waste of time.
But that's we'll chat along the way and that sort of stuff. It's just our time together. It might be playing a game, it might be TV, might be whatever. I try and fit in some reading as well. So reading in the morning when my mind is ready to work, I don't get the same benefits from reading. Now this is something that I've only recently realised. My reading in the evening when my mind is sort of winding down a little bit causes it to wander.
Okay.
So you see loads of people. This is another one of my pet peeves. Is how many books can you get through in a year?
Yeah.
It's not
but
about.
I
It's not.
absorb none of them.
It's not about. It's not about that. It's finding the tangibles and the takeaways and all that sort of stuff. I saw someone talking about how you can read without internalizing your voice, and that helps you to get through books faster. Why would I want to do that?
Just don't pick up the book.
It's for me. I love the fact that my mind wanders. You're still taking in what you're reading, right?
Yeah.
It's just going in the subconscious. But I have some of my best ideas reading a book, and they tend to be along
in the evening.
They tend to be along the same sort of subjects, but more so in the evening because my mind is allowed to wander rather than when it's hyper focused, and actually it just focuses on reading what's in front of me. So for me, that's the purpose of reading, and that's why I do that. And then
what bedtime?
Bedtime, I'm like a 9:30. I'll be in bed, getting ready for bed, something along those lines. So quite early.
That's it. So I've realised possibly in the last month or two that I need a certain amount of sleep to be functional. So I'll come to my bedtime. But so if I'm in the office, I've got that commute back.
Mm-hmm. So
obviously,
quite late at that point.
So it does obviously change it. But I'm very much the same. I'm gonna possibly put on. We usually do one episode of whatever series or it is, and we always in my house one, and that's it.
Okay.
We never want to binge watch, and that is more so because I have quite an addictive personality, and I know I do. I've recognised
and you'll get
it,
lost.
and I know that I
could
could lose till 2 a.m. and I'll happily know I'm going to be horrible tomorrow, and I'm going to be dysfunctional compared to my best, and because I'm in that moment, I'll let it consume me. So we do one episode. We stop when we're usually in bed about 9:15, 9:30.
Okay.
Which is quite surprising. At which point is when my light bulb is on, right? My light bulb is awake at this point. I'm functioning. I'm quite awake, and I usually watch nothing but either business videos, a little bit of reading, but it's more phone-based reading, and I'm reading articles or whatever, or I'm reading LinkedIn articles. It's never typically a book unless I'm studying or there's something in particular I found that I want to do. And I'm ashamed to say, but again, trying to break the mold, I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of 101 business things on YouTube. We were talking about one just before this that I was showing you. I find some of them, that's how my brain absorbs best.
Yeah. And then is that the same sort of thing? Your mind wanders, you come up with new ideas and that sort of stuff. And
then the phone goes down, the alarm clock goes on, the phone goes down. And I'll just sit there. I can happily just sit there in the position that I would go to sleep in for, I don't know, feels like forever. 15, 20 minutes.
Is that because your mind doesn't shut off?
That's somewhat because I learn, and we might get into this in another episode. I listen to a lot to a person called Gary Brecker, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, and he talks about the concept of an entrepreneurial mind, and when I learnt this was kind of a bit of a light bulb moment for me. And the entrepreneurial mind, typically an entrepreneur, struggles to switch off and go to sleep sometimes. They think about the most mundane thing. Oh, why did I do that thing in an email today? Like, it is something so completely irrelevant to the situation you find yourself in. And I really resonated with it. I said, that's me. I can be about to fall asleep and I suddenly think, did I lock the door? Did I turn that light off? Did I send that email? Did I use the right words in that email? It can be anything. And he spoke about the concept of, it's not that you've got an overactive brain or anything. It's that you're struggling to decompose the thoughts that you've had. So you're having the same amount of ideas or thoughts that most people would have, but you're not breaking them down, so they're just piling up.
And then when you come to your point of being relaxed,
you
start...
Yeah, and they start piling up. I start getting stressed, so I sit there relaxed, and I just start thinking things, and I will explore them to the biggest exploration. If they're really good, I'll usually do a, hey Siri, record a voice note, and then my phone's doing it now, and I'll try and capture it in some way, shape, or form. If it's that good, I'll take. I remember it in the morning. I'm taking it down, but it's very rare that something meaningful comes out of that moment. It's usually some wishy-washy. But the good stuff stays till the morning.
I'll tell you why my mind goes active at that sort of time of night. It's because my business partner Jason, who is currently having an overactive mind, has sent me something, and I've made the mistake of reading it.
I do
that's
that.
The worst.
If you notice, our exchanges are usually within certain hours, and it's when my brain is firing.
Yep, it's when I'm trying to shut mine off.
And I apologise.
Counterproductive for me.
I apologise to you in the public forum that is podcasting for that. I'll be more mindful now you've said it.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
And then let's just quickly switch it to weekends. You wake up at the same time.
Yep.
You switched off the whole weekend. Do a couple little bits to keep your mind at ease.
Whenever I encourage the switching off thing because it's when the good ideas happen. So throughout the weekend, it'll be like, and that is how we solve that, right? Go and jot it down, and then try and. More recently, I've been working on some projects that excite me, and it'll always be the weekend where I'm like, we could do that, and I really, really struggle with the not doing that then and in that moment. So that's a constant battle for me. But lots of family time at the weekends.
Perfect. Yeah, and so the only difference with me is I treat myself to a little lane. I've been pretty good recently. I'd 8 a.m. get up, do the gym.
Okay.
I want to get as much out of the way as possible so that I have free time, dead time, or whatever time to do what the things that make me tick or that drive me. There's one thing I'd like to throw in there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, it's not necessarily routine specific. Every Thursday or Friday, depends, I have a call purposely at this time with, I would call him my therapist, my mentor. You could label it whatever name you want. And it's purposely at that time usually because it is for me to be able to decompose what has happened that week.
Okay, and get ready for the weekend.
So that I can prepare for the weekend. Because that decomposing of ideas, if there's something I'm harnessing or I'm feeling, if I can't get to the end of that thought tree or whatever it is that I'm thinking, I take it into the weekend. I take it into Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and it can quickly absorb you.
And it's to have that external party, I assume, to help you
to
process those thoughts. That's literally
it's
role,
someone
right?
Just like a life coach, just like a business mentor. There's someone that does not know what's happened that week. You explain it to them. They ask you a question that usually seems like the easiest question in the world, but you couldn't think of it. And then you realise, okay, yeah, I was being a bit daft there, or yes, I was doing really well there. And you just wrap it up on your own. And it's just, I found that I have to be accountable to someone for me to decompose those thoughts. And that might change again at some point, but...
Okay, that's awesome. As we said at the start, a bit of a lighter episode here, but hopefully we've managed to to debunk I better be doing these things because that's what successful people do, and maybe sharing our own ideas and the differences between us of help provide you with some things that you can try and help get to a really productive.
Absolutely. And if you do
state.
none of them, don't worry. You're not doing anything wrong. Just keep doing what you're doing.
But
Use
do
your
it
best
consistently.
moments and do it. Yeah, and do it consistency.
Consistency is key. I had to get that word in there right before the end. Is just keep doing whatever you're doing consistently. If it's working for you and you feel like it's a positive thing, consistency. Thank you very much.
The next one will be harder hitting.
Will indeed. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.